Welcome back, everybody, to Psychedelics today. Joe Moore here with Michelle Janikian, and we've got Robin Devine from Black People Trip. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Really happy to have you. Your Instagram started blowing up on my feed a few months ago. It's like, whoa, you were putting out a ton of great material. I was like really stoked. Um,
Cool.
yeah, and I guess before we dig in too much, you just had a big move. You just moved from New York to San Francisco or the Bay generally.
Yeah, from a big old mountain in New York, the Adirondacks, to the city, San Francisco. That's just last Sunday I got here. So,
Outstanding. Yeah.
yeah.
The Adirondacks have a special place in my heart.
Oh,
So,
yeah?
yeah, totally. I'm originally from New Hampshire, spent a bunch of time in those woods in New York, too.
Okay.
Yeah. More
Yeah.
time in the woods than actually Manhattan and all that junk, too. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I always felt a little nicer in the Adirondacks. Anyway,
It's so peaceful. Like I headed up there for the pandemic just to kind of get some peace and relax, and it was just a nice reset. So, yeah.
good, good. And I guess let's dig in a little bit. Like, what made you want to start this Instagram? Is there a sizable backstory there?
Um, yeah, so I guess it was last summer, mid-pandemic. I was just struggling with depression that had been, I've had for most of my life, but the pandemic just sort of amplified it. And I was in therapy, I was seeing a psychiatrist, I was on about 5 or 6 different psychiatric meds, and I was feeling worse. So I said there have to be alternatives to treating this. And so I just went down a Google rabbit hole and ended up on Medium and found an article by a guy that had written about his MDMA experience and said that one session of MDMA was like 10, 20 years worth of talk therapy. And I said, I don't even know what MDMA is or psychedelics. Those words are all new to me, but I must find it. And so I became relentless, found the medicine, found the guide, and had my first trip like a month later. So
Mm.
I'd love to, yeah. I mean, I would just love to ask you more about your healing journey because that's a big part of why I find your Instagram just like so empowering and important, and it's so honest. And yeah, would you mind telling us about that first guided MDMA journey?
yeah, so it was in Brooklyn. And actually, the guy that wrote the article, I emailed him. I just cold emailed him and said, hey, who was your guide? Because I didn't
Yeah.
know how to find one. And I was amazed that he wrote back with her name. Um, so we connected, set up a time. I went there and it was beautiful. Like MDMA. And I'm having I'm not sure if we did MDMA and mushrooms first or just MDMA, but whatever it was a beautiful experience. For the first time in my entire life, I felt self-love. I felt connected to myself, to life, like I belonged here. And it was just really sweet. And I fell in love with psychedelics.
And
I
that was
became an
your
avid.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. So that was your
Oh, no.
first psychedelic experience ever. Like you never used them with
Ever.
friends for fun. Wow.
No, I didn't even know about it. And I think it was because in the Black community, they just aren't really talked about. I mean, like growing up, my mom smoked pot. I knew about that. But other drugs like those, they just weren't a part of they weren't a part of our life for some reason.
I mean, I think you have a lot of ideas of those reasons, though, right? I mean, you write about it,
I
like it's
do. Yes, I have a couple
stigma and
ideas.
like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard, right? I mean, yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, why do
Yeah.
you think the Black community isn't as
I,
quick to embrace psychedelics as
it,
others?
it's so funny. A lot of my friends that are people of color that went to white colleges knew about them. I went
Huh?
to a HBCU, a Black school, and so all we knew about was pot. And what we knew about pot was that we can go to jail for it
Right.
quite quickly. And I actually had friends in college who were in jail at 19 and 20 for minor pot possessions. Um, and so it's like, why would we want to add reasons for people to get put in jail? Why add to that with other drugs? So we'll just stay with these, and and yeah, I think psychedelics have been shown to us to be like a white guy tech bro kind of drug. That's just what I knew. So when I heard words like LSD, or I didn't think they were for me. I'm like, oh, that's not a drug that I have any business dealing with. So yeah, that's one reason we go to jail more.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. No, no, thank you for digging
yeah,
into that. And so that's
yeah,
part of the reason you wanted to start Black People Trip, right?
definitely, definitely. And the catalyst was my second trip with the same guide. It was around the time, actually, right in the middle of the Black Lives Matter protests. Uh, George Floyd, and as a Black person, I was just devastated. I was brokenhearted, and I went to the trip, or to the session, and was hoping to find another human that could empathize with where I was, even if they couldn't understand it. And what she said to me before our session was, well, I'm in my little bubble. And granted, she's in Brooklyn. And she said, I'm in my little bubble here in my house, and what's happening there doesn't really affect me, doesn't really impact my world. And I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, this is not good. But I was so new to this experience that I didn't know how important set and setting were. And had I known, I would have been like, keep my money, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
But I didn't, because I was desperate for the trip, to try something that would help.
Of course.
And so I went, and it was a tough trip. I fought it the entire time because I couldn't let go. And after that, I said, I want a Black guide, but I couldn't find any. And hence, I created what I have now, Black People Trip, to find other guides and connect us. So that was a very long answer to a short question. Sorry about
No,
that.
Was
it's a
that
great
like
answer.
the biggest part of the kind of lack of rapport between you and the guide, or was there something else that was maybe trickier, or like even approaching a white guide at first being kind of awkward?
No, it was totally just that one interaction that day. I mean, I think if we had just gone in and not had a conversation, just not talked, and just like gotten to the medicine, it would have been fine. But just finding out where she was, not even so much politically, but just from a human standpoint, it was like upsetting to me.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
What medicine was that? Do you remember? Was it MDMA or mushrooms?
I think the second time we did both. And I'm wrong. The second time was just MDMA. The first time was mushrooms and MDMA, because the first trip was a little too intense. So I took off one for the second trip.
Yeah, that's an intense combo.
That's a lot. For the first time, I was like, because I didn't know. But my
Yeah.
thinking was, well, the more the better. So why not? And I didn't know.
Of course, no, of course. It's just so funny. Like I've been there. Like when you're starting out and you just don't know, and you take too much or you mix, and you're like, I thought MDMA would make it easier. I think that is actually still a common misconception in the community, and I think it makes it more intense, like really emotional, and just like overwhelming. But I'm just already a really emotional person, so maybe that's more about me than the mix. Such a good point. And so this is something I've read on your Instagram, like, should Black people only use Black guides, right? Or like let's dig into that. Like, what do you think? Like, obviously there's benefits, but is it totally necessary, or
No, I don't think so. I think people think that that's my suggestion, and it's not, because I had a guide a few weeks ago who was a white woman who was so beautiful and lovely and gave me the best experience. What I'm saying is, find a guide that's comfortable for each person. And for me, that person needs to be culturally competent. So I'm not having to put in work to explain something to them, or to make them comfortable, or to have to correct them if they do a microaggression. I don't want to do that. This is my time to heal. Do your own work and then come to me. So whether it's a white person or a Black person, they should all be doing their own homework outside of sessions to be competent in that way. So
So important. No, thank you for going into that. I really appreciate it. I think so important. Yeah, and just thinking about that experience of yours. Like, so yeah, you know what else? But like representation does really matter, right? And like when you approach a
oh, yeah.
community that's all white tech bros talking about
Yes.
literally like bringing LSD to work when you can't
Yes.
even like smoke a joint without being afraid of being arrested or worse by police, right? It's pretty off-putting, no? Like
I mean, I have literal black person PTSD. Okay, let me tell you why. Because the
please.
other day I met a new friend in the area in the park out here in San Francisco, and he started rolling a joint, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, no, it's okay. It's legal here. But I was so petrified in my being of like the ramifications that I couldn't even relax and enjoy it because that's so much a part of me, you know?
Yeah,
So
and then like to smoke a joint when you're already so anxious, like bad trip, like
Ooh,
yeah, right. You're just gonna
no.
spiral out, or that's what I would. Interesting. It's so true. I mean, even in places where it's legal, I mean, black people still get arrested. Like like New York's been decriminalized for
Oh yeah.
years,
Yeah.
and so I understand. Like, obviously, that's not something that makes you feel safe, right?
Not at all. Not at all. I went to there's a place out here, it's a church, and their church is based on mushrooms and cannabis, which I think it's awesome. But when you go in, you're escorted in by a police officer. And it took me a minute to go inside because I was like, I don't know about this, but it was totally legit. And it
Yeah.
was like, yeah.
Well, cool,
So
but still,
I
like,
know it was like,
it's kind of a weird
so
vibe to start that whole experience
very
with.
much so. Yeah. So it's still very ingrained in me, that fear.
And let's also talk about like how representation in leadership matters, right? Because like if you
Mhm.
approach this community and it's like how do I fit here? Can I fit in here, right? Or like can this support me? And I guess like what can we do as a psychedelic community? I mean, clearly put more black people in leadership positions, right? Like
Yeah.
that's an easy one. But like what else do you think can we do to I don't know, try to make this more accessible and welcoming and safe for the black community and for, people of color in general?
Yeah. I think that's a great question.
It's a tricky one, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, it's good. I have so many thoughts. My mind is just I think it's going to be on Black people to actually get out into neighborhoods and share their own stories and teach each other. Because honestly, for me, it helps for me to learn from someone that has a shared history and that looks like me and that I can relate to. So I don't want to go to a conference and hear from a white woman that has a different life story than me. I just can't relate to that. I can't relate. It's all love, but I can't relate. So I think people that are into this space, Black people that are using psychedelics, that are enhancing their own lives, need to share more openly with people in their families, communities, social circles, and I think that'll start to help. You know, I did a very brief ad campaign on my own page just to share Black folk stories. You know, and people were like, "Oh yes, I want to see more of that," and it was really so simple, but just seeing someone's face that's like that they can connect with made a huge difference. I think, I hope, from the feedback that I received. So
I
we
remember
need,
that.
we
Yeah.
need more
I
of
mean,
that.
it was just like 2 weeks ago, right? It wasn't that long ago that you
Yeah,
posted
no, and
these.
it's still going, but I'm
Cool.
a little behind. But
Oh my God,
yeah,
don't worry. Take your time and
so,
the move and
yeah,
everything. But
So are you getting a ton of attention from BIPOC folks? Like now that you're kind of establishing yourself as a leader, right?
yeah, I am. That's so funny to hear, but yeah, I am, and a lot of what I'm getting is people looking for services.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, where can I find a guide? Hey, where can I go to learn from someone safe to grow mushrooms? So I'm finding that I'm becoming more of a connector in my community. So I'm not doing a lot of teaching, which I want to do. I'm more bringing folks together that don't know where to look. So
Does that feel like you're putting yourself at risk by providing that information at all?
not at all. And I think a part of it is what's the word? I don't care. I'm very not nonchalant, but I don't have a family. I don't have kids. I'm not like, so if anything goes down, I'm gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. But to me, the work is more important than any risk that I may take by sending someone a name or a resource.
Good.
So
And,
That's
that's
brave
kind of
of
the
you,
position
though.
I took, and I'm thankful I don't have a professional license, don't have any kids.
I mean,
I actually try
exactly.
my best to not know information in the event I get waterboarded. so,
Fair.
so I'm
That's
like,
fair. Yeah.
yeah. So people ask me for a guide, even like around here. I'm like,
I
not really.
know. But
Sorry.
see, I saw somewhere, I think it was in Dr. Hart's interview on Carl Hart. He said the way that we interact around these psychedelics makes us behave like children. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so true. Because when someone asks me for a guide, I want to say, yes, you can go to this person. They're safe. But I can't. There's a hesitancy because I don't want to get anybody like in trouble.
Right.
And with that said, I'm also creating a resource guide of guides. And I'm like, how do I do this safely? So navigating that has been super tricky.
Right. Have you linked up with Omar Thomas yet? Diaspora Psychedelic Society.
I have like, yeah, we're talking
Good.
about how to collaborate in the future in
Good.
different
Yeah.
projects.
I had
Yeah,
a
he's
beautiful phone
amazing.
call with him a couple weeks ago, and he
Ah,
did a really good podcast with
yeah.
some folks. I forget the name of the podcast. Really mushroom focused, but it was beautiful, and he laid out such a great vision. Like, let's,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. That I'm like, oh man,
Cool.
I wish I
Oh,
was linked up with you 4 years ago. It could have done some
right?
damage in the right way.
Oh, he's doing beautiful work, and I really hope to connect with him
Good.
and work together. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Robin, you're working on a course, right? Will you
I
tell us
am.
about that and who it's for and what it'll teach?
Sure. So the course, I'm sad to say I've had to postpone it, however, for June, just because life has been um, riding my ass this past couple of weeks. Um, but the course will just be a basic 101 course of all the things that I didn't know when I started. So it'll be intro to the medicines, every single one, the interactions, what they do, how to prepare, how to integrate, all those things. Two, how to trip sit,
Oh,
nothing too
cool.
deep, just for yourself, for family and friends, nothing intensive. Um, um, how to interface with these medicines safely, and there's one more thing that I'm blanking on because my brain is tired, but there's one more part to it. So it's just 4 weeks covering the basics. I'll have a guest speaker every week. They can have a Q&A. They can ask me direct questions. And I just want it to be a place for women to learn, so that they can do this safely. That's really my main goal, safety and
Absolutely.
education. Yeah.
And specifically for this like community that doesn't get this, right? It's specifically pretty much it's directed at for Black women, right? Is that true or is it for
Yes.
anyone? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Like a safe place to discuss this stuff.
I
No?
say, yeah, because I mean, I've had so many women tell me that they'll go to a group and they're the only one. And they're like, yeah, it was fine, but I wanted somebody else there. So I really want to create spaces where we aren't the only, we're it, and we can just talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and have that shared experience, right? And that
Exactly.
history and absolutely it's
Exactly.
so important. Yeah. Does it have a name? Where can people find it? The class.
Yeah. So it's on my Instagram. I don't have like a full link because I'm very low tech, but I will get there. Um, and it's just an intro to psychedelics. It's a very basic course, and we're starting in June. So I think I have 8 spots left to sign up.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
and what I
Yeah.
love is that I went to my community and I said I really want to get these spots sponsored and paid for by people, so that women that don't have the funds yet can still be a part of it. And so far, I've had like 11 or 12 spots sponsored, and I love that. So it's been really beautiful, the support.
Really, what a great model. Like, that's such a good idea. Yeah, that's
Thank
great. Like,
you.
it's pretty
Thank you.
obvious, but like, what a great, powerful thing you're doing. Like,
Thank
awesome. No,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your background before jumping into the field. Like, what were you up to before you encountered psychedelics?
Yeah, I am a lifelong gig worker and entrepreneur. So I'm either starting my own business or doing gig work, like
Mm.
delivering with Amazon. Or before the pandemic hit, I was, believe it or not, a home organizer.
Mm.
Cool.
And no reason, just because I just happened to be good at it. And
Yeah.
it was, so I've never really had a stable career background. I've always been a writer my entire life. So I do a lot of freelancing, a lot of ghostwriting.
Mm.
So I'm kind of all over the place, but I think this is my path now. So I'm
Great.
committed to this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're
Yeah.
happy to have you.
Thank
Yeah, and
you.
I'm
Glad to be.
excited. By the time this podcast comes out, Robin will have already published at least one blog post on our blog. And so,
Right.
I mean, just really looking forward to just sharing your work with more people through our
Yeah.
platform. You have a really great piece. I mean, we already kind of talked about this a little, coming out later today, but that'll be like probably a month ago by the time this gets released on, 4 ways to start destigmatizing psychedelic therapy in the Black community.
Hmm.
And it is a lot of, we need more representation, right? In
Hmm.
media, in healthcare. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that topic while we're here?
Um, yeah, I think we need more. You already said it, but more Black therapists.
Yeah.
So I would love to see an initiative of people, of me. I'll do it. Going into colleges and universities, talking to graduate psych students about the possibility of being a psychedelic therapist. You know,
Cool.
because they're already, in terms of talk therapists, Black ones, there are so few to begin with, so few. But then Black therapists and psychedelics, it's like, I don't know, two. So we need more of them. So it's more representation. It's normalizing drug use. It's normalizing therapy, which we're
Yeah.
also are not big fans of as Black folks. Um, so yeah,
Can we talk
normalizing.
about that for a minute?
Yeah.
Because people don't understand why, and largely it comes from a lack of understanding history at all, right? Or probably there's some other stuff going on too. But I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I don't understand it totally because I didn't grow up that way, but I know that culturally, my folks, a lot of them feel this way. We're big on church. We love our church. I don't, but a lot of Black folks do. And so, the answer is supposed to be if something is wrong, go to church, pray it away, go repent or whatever we do. And mental health is not for us. Again, it's something that white folks do. We shouldn't need that. And so when people do go to therapy in the Black community, we're seen as crazy. We're labeled as, weak. And who wants that? So we avoid it. And if we do go, we don't talk about it. Me, I love therapy. I go twice a week. I'm telling everybody about it. So I don't know why I was raised differently, but I know that I'm in the minority when it comes to Black people and therapy. I'm aware of that.
Mm. Well, thanks
Yeah,
for sharing
no,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely. I would love to dive in a little deeper into your healing journey, right? Because,
Hmm.
you did mention at the beginning of the podcast that you were really depressed and you had been depressed and you were on a bunch of medications for it. And so, I mean, let's talk about how psychedelics have helped. Like what's different now, like in your thought process, or not. Can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I love psychedelics. They just opened me up. And like, am I happy right now? No, but I'm so much more open than I was on the drugs. Like the drugs for me just covered up. They didn't really get to, well, why are you sad, babe? Like, what's going on underneath? The psychedelics offer me insight into that.
Yeah.
They're like, well, hey, how about this? Or let's gently look at this area. And I love that. I'm getting to really explore why I feel the way that I do, which is new. You know? So, yeah,
Same. Yeah. Oh, man, it's powerful stuff and it's tricky stuff, right? Like
very much.
it's hard. It's not easy. I think there's a lot of, in the media, it's like, oh, one mushroom trip, depression over, moving on. And it's not usually like that, right? Like
No, no. And
I guess I wanted to ask you, like, what are some practices outside of psychedelics that are also helping you? Maybe they're like integration techniques or just like, I don't know, whatever it is to you. Like, what else are you
yeah.
doing?
Yeah, I started seeing, in addition to my own therapist, I started seeing an actual integration therapist to
Oh,
help me, to
cool.
support me on my trips, and that's been super helpful. Because I didn't really understand what integration was.
I feel you.
It's like, what do I do with all this information? So she helps me to really process that, and that's been really helpful. Um,
Cool.
and also learning to take time between trips to just like sit and be. Because when I first started, I would do a trip and then the next day go back to work. And that's not supportive or loving or kind. And now I create space, you know? So I take a day or two to just not do a damn thing and just really let myself be in the experience. And that's been really, really helpful. So
Yeah, it's a hard one to learn in our culture. It's like if you don't work that day, you don't get paid. And like it's like tough,
yeah.
right? Like I feel you.
And
Like I've been trying to take space too, and it can be really tricky. And I have to wait a long time before it
yeah,
really makes sense, but it's so worth it when I do.
yeah, definitely. And it's not that I didn't want to. I literally could not afford to.
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
like
Especially in the gig
when
economy, we can't just like take a vacation day, right? Like
no,
I
it's
know,
like
same.
I mean, there are days where I don't work, I don't eat, I don't pay a bill. And so to say, let me just go relax and integrate, well, no. So
I
I'm
know.
getting there. And that's why I think education is so important because people don't really, I don't think, don't really know how important that other part is. So it's the trip, and then it's what do you do after the trip that's supporting what you just learned. You know? So,
Absolutely. Well, I'm really glad that you are out there trying to help provide some of that education, but it shouldn't
thank
be
you.
just up to you, and I know it's not, but I mean, it must
No.
be hard, like, kind of. So I know, like, for me, it was hard kind of being thrust into this leadership position just like a year or two ago. And it was like,
Yeah.
I actually like, there's all these people that know like decades about psychedelics and people just want me to talk about it. I'm like, what? And I imagine it's tricky for you too. There's a lot of pressure involved, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to talk about that a little? How does it
Yeah.
feel to be in a leadership position in psychedelia?
Definitely. I really felt for you when you said that when I was reading your book because you were like, I don't know I'm just brand new here. What do y'all want me? So I related to that very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not the first one doing this work, but somehow I'm getting attention. And I think only because my name is so specific, like you know what I do very clearly. And a lot
Great
of people who are
branding.
out here,
Great branding,
thank
Robin.
you. It was very random and thank you very much. Um, I lost my thought. What was I
I
saying?
interrupted you. I'm so
Oh,
sorry, but we
yes.
were.
No, no, no. I got it back. I got it. Okay. The pressure is real. And I've found myself being very overwhelmed the past 2, 3 months,
Yeah.
only because I want to do everything because I know how important this work is. But I can't. I'm gonna have to really scale back so that I can be more of service in a more quality way to the
Yeah.
folks that I serve. Um, yeah, because like I swear the downloads that I get every day of ideas and things to do is ridiculous, but I can't do it all, but I want to. So my hope is that in the next year or two, I'll have funding to get a team so that I can really put more of these ideas into place. Um,
Yes.
yeah. And can I share one thing I'm so excited about?
Absolutely.
Um, I had an idea last month for a psychedelic equity fund for Black women to like raise money to help them pay for whatever they want, a guide, ketamine clinics, retreats, anything.
Cool.
And it actually by the end of this month will be in place, set up, and funded, and ready to roll. So I love that. So
Congratulations. That's
thank
big.
you.
That's huge. And it is a
Yeah.
lot of work. And yeah, a team will definitely make it easier. As someone who's
Oh
just joined
yes,
this team, like, wow, I just didn't even know what I was missing. It makes me feel so much more supported and makes
yeah.
things easier. And so I
Oh,
know what it's like, and I'm so excited. I mean, yes, I'm going to help you make this work. No,
thank
but
you, thank you.
I think that's really the equity fund is so important. And, another thing I've been thinking is that, like, not only is getting a psychedelic guide really expensive, but if you did want to be a therapist, like, of any kind, it's really expensive. Training, grad school, like all this kind of stuff are like pretty big barriers to entry,
Yes,
right? Do you
yeah.
think, like, I mean, what can we not what can we do, but like, yeah, how can an equity fund help in that regard as well to create more like Black facilitators?
I hadn't thought about that, but I really want to offer funds for people that want to go to graduate studies. Thank you for that idea. I'm going to add that in. I think schools should offer more funding and
I know.
programs and incentives to people that want to do this work. So create a
Yeah,
scholarship, you know,
that'd be
somebody who wants to
cool.
go do it, pay them to do it, pay them to do research, put some, because you know what, Michelle, there is so much money out here. So I don't want to hear that there isn't money. I don't want to hear that. There's billions of dollars for people, the right people. So I want some of that money to be funneled to us little guys doing the groundwork, you know?
1,000%. Especially, I know all this news, right, about patents and money and investments,
Oh,
and Tim Ferriss invested $1 million
right?
into this center. It's like, well, that's great, I guess, but like, how
I
much
mean,
change could that $1 million do if it went into a
what?
psychedelic equity fund versus some new fancy psychedelic center?
Here's the thing, Dr. Bronner, if you're out there listening, I need 25 grand to make my vision happen. That's what I need. And I can get this work done. Done.
Not
I
even
could
a
do
million,
so much.
yeah,
Not even a
25.
million.
No,
25 grand. And I could do so much.
yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
There's a chance David Bronner will be listening. You
Dr.
never
Bronner, I
know.
appreciate you. Yes.
So yeah, like there are really a lot of organizations coming to the table. I just found out about another one today. It was funding some stuff with Chacruna. Can't remember their name, but totally new, just like foundation. And then there's River Styx Foundation, who like partners on some really interesting projects. They actually funded a lot of the peyote conservation initiatives.
Wow.
They've
Okay.
funded a lot of right to die stuff. I think they even funded the religious leaders psychedelic project at NYU and Hopkins. So there's definitely funders out there. It's just a matter of getting visibility and like having a clear vision to throw at them. But I totally get the
Yeah.
frustration, right? You just see all this money going to universities, which is kind of like,
Ah,
I get it. I understand the argument, but I also understand there needs to be it's not just clinical data. We need more.
we need more. Yeah. And I was talking to someone last night about clinical research and data. And I think at some point I'm gonna need to dive into that area just so that I have some backing and some grounding to like come to folks with, and say this is what we're doing and this is the impact it has, but I'm not quite there yet. But it's on my radar. So
Awesome.
we need some numbers
Awesome.
out there.
It's so true. Yeah. Well, so exciting and I know frustrating, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're already, the first steps, getting some visibility and just putting yourself out there. That's the hardest part. And you're doing it. And I think that just doing it alone can help inspire other, minorities, people that are marginalized to do it too. More women in this space, right? Like,
Yeah. I hope so.
I guess I wanted to ask you, like, I have a bunch of stuff here. I wanted to ask you, what are some of the most powerful or perhaps even just the most common reactions you get to your content on Black People Trip? Maybe like in DMs or emails and stuff. I guess powerful and most common are two different questions, but I imagine there's some overlap there. So I'd love to just hear some of
Yeah.
the reactions, the response.
Yeah. A lot of what I get, I'd say 80% is Oh my God, I'm so happy I found you. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was alone.
I see
So I
those
hear
comments sometimes, and they both like fill me with joy and hurt when I see them.
I know, because it's like, it's sad to me that so many Black women have been navigating this space alone, without having any information or anybody to go to as a support system. So yeah, I think it's been both powerful and I forget the other word you use, but it's been both of those things together.
Just like kind of devastating, probably
Yes,
sometimes.
yes, it
Like,
is. Because it's like, I want to say to them, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I know for me, when I first started doing this, it was hard.
yeah.
And I made a lot of missteps. And I had a hard time learning information, So I just want to say, I'm sorry, I get it. And you're not alone anymore. So if I'm here, I'm here. I'm not the only one, but I'm here. So
Coming to mind is this talk at Horizons ages ago.
mm,
Nick Powers gave it and talked a lot about this concept of
yeah.
like a black Burning Man. Like it's really
Ooh.
intimidating for
Mm,
somebody just,
mm,
straight out of Manhattan, Kansas, wherever, to go to
yeah.
Burning Man. You're like, what? Like I don't see black people in the photos.
Yeah.
Like, how do I engage in this culture when it
Yeah.
doesn't appear to be for me?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that topic? Like, just black specific parties,
Yeah.
black specific like.
I totally do. Yes, I do. So, one of my ideas of the 19,000 that I have is to, in the next 2, 3 years, have a conference for Black people in the psychedelic space of just, or just not even Black, POC people in this space, an entire conference. That's on my radar for going forward. And I actually write for Chacruna. I interview Black people just to hear their stories. And a woman that I interviewed a few months ago, I have to post it, shared about her experience at Burning Man. And it wasn't good for her. And it wasn't good. She had an issue with someone, a racial issue. And so I am in full support of Black only spaces.
Yeah.
The same way I'm in full support of queer only spaces and women only spaces. Sometimes you just don't want to be on guard. I don't. I don't. And yeah, I'm all for those. I think people should be able to be totally free and not have to watch their back every single moment and in any space that they're in. So I'm all for it. Yeah. And Nick is a friend of mine who I adore. So yes.
We had him on the show ages ago to record about that too. It was really nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, he really made a compelling case because, if we're to have some sort of like, no walls kind of egalitarian Star Trek future. I use that all the time now in the show because it seems to work for me. But it's like, how do we get there? And we have to like, build comfort levels internally before we can kind of like, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Like,
so we'll get there.
And I get a lot of emails in my inbox, and they make me laugh every time. People saying, "But why the divide? Like it's all one love, sister." And I'm like, "You missed the point. It's cute, but you missed it. Like,
You're cute, but you missed it. I feel you.
This ain't it." So
Right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Can you actually explain this like idea of POC folks having to put in extra work to be in white spaces or under, spaces where they're underrepresented? Because it seems like it's a lot more effort for POC, BIPOC folks to like deal with it.
I don't think that people understand the level of work that it requires on a daily basis just to exist as a Black person. I don't think people get that. It's every fucking day. Sorry about that. It's every day. It's
okay.
And then to be a woman and then to be a queer woman, like it's just so much explaining and having to make people comfortable and to navigate not making someone feel threatened it's just a lot of explaining my own existence, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting, which is why I stay home a lot.
people need to hear
gutting.
this, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even my I'm so non-PC and I apologize. Even my safe white friends who I adore and would give my life for, sometimes they'll say shit and I'm like, oh, did you really just, and they don't mean it. They're totally well-intentioned. They love me, they care about me, but they don't know. And so I'm having to stop and say and educate them. And I don't want to. I don't want just want to exist, you know? So it's work.
I've observed that in
And
my friend groups too. It's horrifying.
yeah,
Just the mental energy it must take. I just
oh,
can't even. I'm just floored. Just existing as a woman is so hard, and
oh my God.
that's
Oh my God.
just. I have it so easy
I
compared.
mean, I mean,
Fuck, sorry.
they're just levels of like of fuckery. It's like, yeah. So I get it. I get it.
No, I'm just really glad you're sharing this and just how important safe spaces really are. And yeah, if you don't realize that representation matters and you think we're all one, I think, like I've said this on the podcast before, you're probably pretty well represented. And so I think it's time to step back and maybe use psychedelics to think about things from another point of view that's not your own. I don't know. Maybe that's too hard,
Yeah.
but there is just so much work to be done in this community, and it is hard to watch people not see it and think that, oh, we're all enlightened, we're all fine. Like, what are you talking about? Why are you bringing those bad vibes into this space? It's like,
No,
no.
no. And it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hard work. And most folks don't want to put in the hard work. There are a
Yeah.
lot of pretty talk and no work. And it's hard. It's not easy, you know? Like, I don't know. When I'm with someone and I have to wonder, do you value my life as a human being? That's exhausting.
Fucked up.
So, and then like white folks don't have to think that. I don't think on a daily basis, you know? And so my offering to our white allies out there is really put in the work. And I know it's hard, but please, it's so worth it.
It
It's so
is.
worth it. And we deserve it. And this space deserves it. So,
So let's
Thank
give a
you.
concrete
No.
example of what that looks like. It's not berating your only black friend, right? For like, what do I do? It's like
yeah.
getting really educated, right? Like understanding a lot more
Yeah.
about what's happened, what is happening, and
Yeah.
then start engaging a little bit so you can kind of get
That's
it from the practical level, right? Or anything I
that's
missed
it.
there?
I think a lot of the work does not involve black people.
Yeah.
So it's white folks having conversations with other white folks. It's when you're at home with your family and you hear some whack shit, say something. It doesn't involve us. This is not our problem. It affects us, but it's not our problem.
Hmm.
So it's about being an advocate and ally when people don't see you, when people aren't
Mm,
around to applaud you and pat you on the back. That's when it counts.
Hmm.
so
You
important.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Right. Because
Robin.
how often do white folks hear some crazy shit and they say nothing from their white colleagues?
And you know what? I can't even get mad because I've done it too. I've heard some crazy racial joke, and I'm like, oh, and in the moment I'm so uncomfortable and off guard that I don't step up. So I see how easy it is to just fall back. But I really encourage people, all of us, me too, to just do more, not be so afraid because I've done it myself. So I get
Yeah.
it.
And change doesn't happen when we just fall back to what's easy, right? And we learn
Mm.
that with
No,
psychedelics too. Like, unless we do the work, no change isn't going to happen. And so
that's it.
The
it's
way
so
out is through.
important.
You can't
Yeah.
go around it.
Yeah, yeah, no, true, true.
Mm. Yeah. So, are you observing any kind of interesting things in the psychedelic space that aren't being really talked about too much at this point?
I am. I'm seeing, and I love it. A lot of parents that
Nice.
are wanting to bring their practice, either share it with their kids, like let them know that they're doing it, or if their kids are old enough to actually be in ceremony or in session with them. And I'm like people are really wanting to heal family systems with this medicine. And I love that. I love it. So yeah, I'm seeing more family interaction, participation,
That's
which is
great.
very cool.
That
Yeah.
feeds into a whole topic Michelle and I are working on with a writer. Hope we
Oh,
have a whole thing. I don't want to leak too
okay.
much of it. And this might be,
Okay.
it's not the most immediate project with this writer, but it's coming, I
Yeah.
hope.
Nice. I
It's
look
kind of like a
forward
whole
to it.
family life cycle thing. Yeah,
Nice.
I
Yeah,
talked to
more
a friend a while
content.
ago who had incredible mescaline experience with his father in a group
Huh.
ceremony. And there is this kind of like energetic transmission father to son that was just
Wow.
extraordinarily powerful and healing for, I think, both of them.
That's
And
awesome.
I think the way we kind of do culture and families is a little bit sick, dare I
Yeah,
say,
just a little
just a
bit.
little bit. And
Little
yeah, like, what is the healthy way? I watch like I don't know how racist this movie is, but I watched it the other day. The Gods Must Be
bit.
Crazy. It was like this interaction between
Oh,
like South African industrialized
yeah,
culture and like,
yeah,
English researchers and Bushmen. And I was like,
yeah.
that family structure looked beautiful and like whole. And I'm like, that's how we evolved, but we're not doing anything near what we were evolved to
No,
do now.
no. Yeah, that movie is brilliant and problematic all at the same time. I love it. I love it. I'm a fan of it. But as far as what the healthy way is, I don't have a clue, but I know that what we're doing ain't it. I know that much. So, like, I think about my own family and our own history of trauma and how I can visibly see it just being passed down.
Yes.
And like, I think if we had been able to sit together, grandmother, mother, and me, and just do mushrooms or have MDMA, how different would our lives be right now? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the only one left, so it's on me. But I just think that we could have had a whole different life. I believe that.
Like break
Right.
these dysfunctional patterns, right? That we
Yeah,
keep passing down generation to generation. I know, I
yeah.
see it. You can see it so like, oh, I hate it when I see it so clearly, like
I
on
know.
mushrooms, and it's so
Yeah.
brutal. But I think that's me like starting to connect maybe with my ancestors. That's not something that I'm really
Mm,
super even comfortable talking about yet, but it's like I'm starting to sense it and that they're like here for me and to, do this work. And it's hard and it's scary and it's dark.
oof.
But that's part of this, right? It's not all sparkly psychedelics or beautiful, and we're all one.
No,
It's
no.
shadow work. It's fucking grueling, and
Like, oh, I'm just now dipping a toe into that ancestral shadow work, and it's terrifying. Um, but I want to dig in because I know once, like you said, the way out is through. It's so I'm in it. I'm in it.
I know. I'm like, same. I'm like, the look on my face. I'm like, oh, we got to
I
do this. But I know
don't
it's,
want to.
I don't want to, but I
I
know
don't want
I
to.
do in
Yeah.
a way just because,
Yeah.
but not really. But like,
I know. I get it. Yes. I mean, the way I look at it is that I'm doing this for not only myself, but the people behind me and the ones that are hopefully to come,
yeah.
so that my kids, if I ever have any, and their kids will be healthy, functioning human beings that are just happy and existing, not having to undo years of trauma like I've had to do.
Yeah, I know. So much of this
So,
work for me is just like unlearning all this healthy stuff I've internalized as a kid and as a teen, and I think it's a really exciting time to be alive because it does kind of feel like this next generation is kind of being like fuck the old way, right? And I guess maybe it
yeah,
always feels like that when you get older.
yeah,
but
yeah.
but it's exciting and just seeing the change in just like how like women are represented in media since I was a teenager in the early 2000s. Like that was such a toxic time, like just everyone was
Mhm.
so skinny and the women's role was so specific and weird and gross, and it made me feel like I didn't belong in this body, in this world. Like I'm not like that, like, right? And no one is. It was just like
No.
weird media representations. And Yeah, I think we're at such a pivotal and interesting time in this combination of being more open to psychedelics and therapy and meditation, and then seeing. I mean, I could also just be in my little echo chamber bubble and it feels like we're in a pivotal time, but
Mhm.
I think that like these things converging and working together, and hopefully there's change happening, not hopefully, like there's
Oh yeah.
clearly change happening, and I
Mhm.
think that the clarity that psychedelics give me to do this unlearning work is such an important tool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Definitely. No, I love that. I love that because I don't have a lot of young people in my life, like 18 to 25-year-olds, but I have a handful. And to see them making their own rules about this, about everything in their lives is wonderful. I love that. And another thing that I want to do is, and I don't know how, I really want to get this education out to young folks,
Yeah.
meaning like the people that are over 18 and 20. They should know about this, and should be involved because they have very big ideas and big voices. And I want to I had a young guy reach out to me a couple weeks ago to mentor him, which I'm like, me? It's so cute. Thank you. But he was 19 and he had a mushroom trip and it changed his whole family, with his dad, his whole, I'm sorry, try that again. His dad and him had a tense relationship and it really shifted that for him.
Cool.
So now he wants to support other Black young men in doing this family work. And I'm like, yes, I want more of that. I want more of that. So trying to really
Beautiful.
reach the young folks now. I don't know how, but it's on my list.
TikTok?
So,
I don't know.
I know. I'm avoiding it. I don't want to,
Same. I
Michelle.
know. I can't.
I
I can't
don't.
put my face on it like that. I know.
I don't want to. I signed up. I did that, and then I was like,
Same.
I can't do it. Oh
I was like,
God, I
I
know
have
you're right.
Instagram. Wasn't that the young thing?
Oh,
God damn it.
I'm grateful. I'm on Instagram. That was a big step for me. I'm like, I don't even want to be there. So I cannot, Michelle. I
I
cannot.
relate.
But
I
you are
know.
right. You are right.
They're on Instagram too. Just
Oh,
I don't
they're more
know.
on
If
TikTok
you're
though. I
under
know.
22 and listening, no,
Oh,
I don't know.
I'll get there. I'll
When you
get
have a
there.
team, you can have a young TikToker on your
There you
team.
go.
There
Well,
we
what do
And I
you
go.
have a.
think the young folks want to learn, especially like young BIPOC folks?
They want to learn how to improve their quality of life. I think they've seen they've seen us, and they're like, yeah, no, y'all are not the goal. Yeah, they want to live better. They want to live happy lives. I respect that.
So it's like
Yeah,
alternative ways of living, and like
yeah, and
psychedelics
it
could
just
be a part of that. Probably healthy diets and whatnot too.
definitely they want new ways of thinking, of seeing the world, and of existing in this space. Because they're seeing us like work jobs we hate and die unhappy, and they're like, "Yo, do better." So they're doing better, and I love it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
they
spent
inspire
19
me,
years in
honestly.
software, and I
Mm,
didn't really enjoy it. And that's
yeah,
19 years of my life.
dude, I was an accountant for 10 years. I get it. I get it. Yeah, it's like, and we're here for like that long, 10 seconds, if that. So why not enjoy it? Why not have
Mm,
have a good time?
I
Yeah.
love that.
So
It's
Yeah.
yeah,
beautiful.
Have a really serious impact, at least at your local level. And
minimum.
yeah,
Yeah.
minimum. Yeah.
Right.
Minimum. I mean, my goal is that I want to get out and teach in communities, and then
Great.
have those people go out and teach, and then have them, and then just have it spread out.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my impact. I hope that's my goal.
Were you ever involved in any of the Occupy stuff?
I was not.
There was
No.
in my observation, I was never really too involved. I was peripherally involved on the kind of eco angle, and
Okay.
a lot of the things, like a lot of people want to say Occupy was a failure, and it wasn't necessarily a failure. It just transformed, and all these people were now wildly engaged in social issues of all different kinds, and
Mm,
social and ecological issues, and they got training, right? Like now we know what this is because of Occupy, right?
mm,
And there's so many other kind of social technologies that kind of came up from that I think we should leverage. So those folks that had experience in Occupy, like, come help us spread this.
I like that. I like that very much. Yeah. Yeah. That gives me ideas. Oh no, more ideas. But
Yeah, good
yes,
luck.
Right.
I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time to be involved in this work as, tensions rise around pharma and drug policy and BLM. Like, I think a really helpful talk track around, like, Carl Hart's work. Carl Hart does a great job kind of, like, accentuating his points. He goes, okay, who are these victims of the drug war? Like, the most famous ones from the last, I don't know, give it 10 years. Say, like, Prince, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, DMX. There's so many. And this is why the drug war needs to go away. And part of the drug war going away means that we can heal.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a lot of those deaths that you just mentioned could have been, I believe, prevented with education.
Yeah, 100%. And we're not funding it. We're buying new tanks for police departments and the DEA.
Yeah, which is not helpful.
No.
But,
no, not at all. It increases trauma. Like, the fact that people don't understand that essentially the war on drugs is a war on people of color is insane to me. They don't see it. So essentially, like, the DEA is, like, an extension of Jim Crow cops, and it's so fucked up.
Yeah. And if people would just roll back a few years, not even a few, 50, 60, 100 years to see where this all stemmed from, I don't know if it would make a difference or not. I would hope it would, but who knows?
Right. So we should keep telling the story, right? We should share it with communities that don't know it so that it spreads.
I think so.
It's like a meme war.
Definitely. I mean, and that education information isn't my role here. That's not my role. I'm clear on that. Yep. It's someone's. It ain't mine.
Totally.
My job is to those communities that have been harmed by that subset is to help them. That's why I'm here. So
yeah, right on.
Hope someone's
glad you're doing it. No, like Carl Hart's doing. There's so many people stepping up to the plate since Carl Hart. I joked a number of times, Robin, about changing the name of the show to The Drug War Today, because this is like almost all I want to talk about.
Okay.
Like, I'm interested in psychedelics, but I'm like, what are we doing if we don't have freedom to do this stuff?
His book changed my whole perspective. Because before I was like, well, I'll do mushrooms, but like heroin, I don't know, or meth, I don't know. And now I'm like, no, drugs are drugs. Or medicine, whatever you want to call it, whatever terminology you use, fine. But they're all the same. We just attach this morality to certain ones over others, and they're all the same.
Yeah, no, Carl Hart,
I believe.
I agree. And what a white privilege thing to be like, well, my drugs are fine, but your drugs aren't, right? And that's so unwelcoming to communities of color too. It's like, oh, I can just openly roll this joint in public, take this acid at work because there are no repercussions for me. And that is not okay. That's just that's not how we move forward. It's ugly.
There's so many levels to this, Michelle. Because this sounds so bad, but I go to my white friends' houses or homes, and in their cabinets, they have no shortage of Percocet or Xanax or any kind of opiate. Me, I go to the hospital. I'm in the worst pain of my life. They give me Tylenol because they think I'm drug seeking. I'm like, I hate everybody. It's just, there's so many disparities in so many areas that need to be addressed. And it just feels like so much. It's like, where do we start? So
I know. Sorry, not to put that all on your shoulders because that is not your role. I am so sorry. But no, I feel you. It's so ugly. It makes me, and then when white people don't see it and they're just like,
I know.
And it really, it's and I understand it's a complicated place to navigate because I am trying to every day in a respectful and responsible way, and I know it's hard, but it's so worth it,
Oh,
to be sensitive on how we talk about drugs also. Like, yes, we should be more open, but we also need to be sensitive to like what is being open and what is just basically bragging about privilege, right? It's like there's definitely a fine line, and destigmatizing is really hard. And but it's work, and we have to put it in, and we have
it's
to, yeah.
yeah. I'm not asking everyone to understand immediately. It takes time, and I get
Yeah.
that. What I'm asking for is what you said, sensitivity and empathy and that. Start with that. You don't have to understand it or agree with it. Just start with being sensitive and knowing that maybe it exists, even if you don't are affected by it personally, that it's out there. You know,
Yeah.
that acknowledgement makes a difference.
Easy first
So
step for everybody. Seriously.
that's
What's more
it.
human than just
That,
being empathetic and sensitive? What's more psychedelic than
I
being
mean,
empathetic and sensitive?
yeah, exactly,
I
exactly. I think
know.
if we all had our own practice with psychedelic, it'd be a different world. If we all had our own personal like practice with it, whether it be once a year, once a month, it would just change so much. I believe.
And if it was legal, that would be an
Legal.
option for everyone. Because right now,
Yeah.
I mean, even talking about it, like, it's not safe really, right? And
No,
so,
no.
I do
Like
really, yeah.
yeah, I had a guide, just a third guide, a different guide, and she was like, "Do you want to go outside and walk, like in the middle of a trip?" And I'm like, "Go outside? What? No!" And she was a white woman. I'm not a white woman, and she didn't get why I didn't want to go outside. She didn't get it. So I'm like, can we just legalize this stuff so we can all just be happy together? So
We
And to
could
be clear, this is in an
all,
urban
yeah.
environment, probably.
and we were in Boston. So it was in a big old city. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna
Oh
stay right
my
here
God, no.
inside. Yeah, but so yeah.
Are there any folks in particular who you find really inspirational, kind of doing similar work or related work to you?
Yeah, I mean, my go-to is always, and I've learned from them so much, the Ancestor Project, formerly the Sabina Project. I just adore what they do. And also they're not really doing work, but I appreciate what they're creating. The Fireside Project of the helpline that's coming up. I think they launch tomorrow or today or tomorrow. I don't know. Um, but it's a peer support line where people can call if they're in the middle of a tough trip and get support. And I love it. They can text, they can call. So I really love what they're offering. Those are my main two go tos that I learn from and support. So
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, we're. I don't know that we actually have anything in the works with them, but I've been aware of them for some time now.
I've
Okay.
been trying. We're
Yeah,
getting
check
there.
out check out Hanifa Nayo. She's amazing. She's actually uh, out here. We're gonna connect soon, hopefully. Um, but yeah, she's incredible. She does amazing work as well on her own.
Very cool. She's working on with the Fireside Project too, right?
She's one of the founders. Yeah, but she also
Yeah.
has her own separate collective of work that she does in this
Yeah, she's
space.
featured in an article in our blog, Nine Women of Color Trying to
Oh,
Create a More
I
Inclusive Space. And you're featured
oh
too, Robin.
the one that I was in that I had yet to
Yeah,
read.
that
Thank you.
Rebecca
Yes,
wrote. Yeah, I think.
yes, Rebecca.
And so Rebecca
Yeah.
interviewed her for the piece too. And so,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, no, really important work. She actually has such a long resume of like
Oh my
really
goodness.
impressive works, really cool.
Yeah.
Really admire her as
She's
well.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And she's the person that's doing more diversity inclusion work. That's her lane. So she's really about that, which I love.
So important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, yeah. How are we doing on time? Sorry.
We're about there, actually.
Cool.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess, I wanted to end with just kind of, I mean, we have been talking about your future plans a bit just throughout the conversation, but
Yeah.
like, what's coming up for Black People Trip? What do you want to share with people before we wrap up?
Yeah, so the main thing I'm working on right now is getting my nonprofit status so that I can get funding so that I can really start getting out in the community and doing this work. So
Excellent.
that's on my plate for now. Um, and then I'm also working on a book that'll hopefully get some interest and get picked up. So those are my two main things. Yeah.
So are you shopping around to publishers already?
Not quite yet. That'll be hopefully this summer.
Awesome.
I'll be ready for that.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there are no books by Black queer women about this topic. So I'm like, we need at least one.
It's 100%
Somewhere
true.
that.
Yeah.
A
About time.
1,000%. Yes.
Yeah.
Be so great. No, I know. We're going to keep talking about that. I'm excited. Yeah. And so where can people find you online? Where's your community?
Yeah, online we are mainly housed on Instagram, Black People Trip. The website is in progress, so you can find me there as well for now. Those are the two main hubs. So yeah, and they can always email me at blackpeopletrip@gmail.com to just reach out, ask a question, connect, and I'm there. So.
Excellent.
Right on. Thank you, Robin. It's been wonderful having you, and hope to have you back, and hope we get more blogs out of you eventually.
This has been so awesome. Thank you both. And fun.